News and Politics Hour. We're going to go from national politics to something a little more local here. I'd like to welcome my next guest, the Commissioner of the Rhode Island Department of Education, Dr. Ken Wagner.
Hi.
Thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
You've been here before to give us updates what's happening with RIDE. School year might be just wrapping up. There were some schools getting out today. But we're focusing here because today RIDE announced $6.9 million in grants for adult education learning opportunities. Now, this was an RFP for providers to come forth and say, this is what we're looking to achieve in the community. You have 22 respondents, have a number of beneficiaries now who are going to be out there. Talk with us about the adult education landscape right now.
Sure. So we have a really strong adult education provider community. They've done great work. They have the highest measurable gains in New England year over year. GED credentials, industry credentials, all of that's good, but we haven't put out an RFP since 2010.
Since 2010.
So 8 years, we have a new RFP. We believe that we have a great, strong model, but we can do even better. So today was the announcement of the awards, and we're really pleased. We're trying to bring a different model to adult education that's anchored in some of the work that my colleagues at Scott Jensen at the Department of Labor and Training, Heather Hudson at the Governor's Workforce Board, integrated training across skills development, education work also including post-secondary education. We've been doing that in the K-12 space with a model called P-TECH, which is an opportunity for students to do their high school work, get an associate's degree from CCRI, and job training as well. We're bringing that model from workforce development, high schools into our adult education, which is we're working with our colleagues in post-secondary education, in K-12 education, as well as in workforce job training, and trying to stitch all that together through partnerships and do even better for our workforce constituents like we're doing for our K-12 constituents and our job development constituents.
So you mentioned GED as being part of it. How big of the adult education learning community is it? Because there's certainly more, but that's a big slice of the pie.
The GED? Yeah, so I view adult education as us finishing what we didn't, what we started in K-12. We have certain learners that either did not get their high school diploma in K-12 and they want to complete that with a GED, or they did get a high school diploma and they want to go even farther in their educational journey. We have a whole mix of people who come for adult education services, and again, we work with lots of partners. Some are looking for a GED, some are looking to shore up their English acquisition skills. They're learning English as a second language. Some are working on basic literacy, and everyone is working on advancing their job skills. So we need to stitch all that together and do this with our provider community.
You talk about the English language learners. The numbers in the release today, as could be anticipated, have grown exponentially over the past 6-7 years since we last saw an RFP out.
Yeah, the English language learner community is one of our fastest growing communities in Rhode Island. We need to make sure that we up our game to serve their needs, as goes the state, will go all of these different stakeholders. And we have to pay attention to our recent arrivals, people who are learning English as a second language, and also people learning other languages as a second language. Second language acquisition is a strength in a 21st century America, 21st century economy, and we need to step up for that.
And so let's talk a little bit, if folks are watching or know of folks, best resource, RIDE website, where can folks learn more about how to get these services that are available?
So we have particular pages on adult ed that lays out the different range of service providers as in our press release, but also there's community resources. There's a number of community resources across the state, and any one of those community resources can point people in the right direction.
And as K through 12 education, adult education, I'm sure is the same, the constant evolving of the skill sets to meet the needs of the job market. Talk with us a little bit about that. You talk about working in partnership. It must change so often, but there's still core skills there that need to be addressed.
So we need to see this as one team. Presidents Hughes and Sanchez and Dooley in our public institutions, Commissioner Dan Messier in higher ed in general, Scott Jensen and Heather Hudson on the workforce side. We are one team that are working together to not only advance our economy, but to advance the lives of all the people that we serve. And the commonality across that model is we don't learn over here and do over here. We have to do it together. Learning and doing have to happen side by side. That's how we learn best, and that's how we'll be best prepared for the jobs that we are creating. And it's exciting work, but it's really, really important work as well.
We'll provide again who those recipients are, again, of the $6.9 million for adult education. But as I said, school K through 12 is just about wrapping up this week. What else is on your RIDE plate this summer, Commissioner?
So there's a great first that's happening this week. We did, again, working with the same partners that I mentioned before, summer internships. Paid summer internships with earned college credit for about 150 rising high school seniors all across the state. They have a boot camp that's going on this week. I joined them for a networking luncheon where they mixed and mingled with people who have things that they might want to learn about, various job possibilities. And that, again, is an integrated model. They're moving into their senior year on the high school side, but they're also learning job skills through this boot camp. And then at the end of the week, into next week, they're going to go right into a paid summer placement with some of our biggest employers across the state. It's the start of a very important tradition that we hope to launch.
What are we talking, 150 students? Was that the number?
About 150 students. We had about 350 so applicants and about 150 students, and we hope to grow the program.
I was going to say potential for growth. Now, how long is the internship program throughout the summer?
I think it's a 6-week internship program over the course of the summer.
They're
going to work. They're going to work hard, but it's going to be some of their most fun, hardest work that they're going to do. And I met with some students at lunch today, and they said they learned more in the past 2 days because it was driven by context, hands-on, than they might learn in much more time in a traditional academic model.
And these are rising seniors in high school?
Yep.
Okay, so that's summer learning. Anything keeping an eye on the horizon for K through 12 next year?
So the big news, of course, coming out of the legislative session is we're moving forward with our plan to make a historic investment in our school facilities. We can't possibly do this work if we have crumbling schools, which we have all across the state, and all communities struggle with facilities. So we now are moving forward with a bond referendum in November to approve a $250 million bond, coupled with an ongoing state appropriation, coupled with local contributions, $1 billion over the next 5 years. It's absolutely critical, not only for our kids and for our teachers, but for the future of our state.
And if you didn't catch it, we had the bond referendum director, Eric Hasselhurst, on GoLocal Live the other week. If you Google it, you can check it out as well. So that bond referendum. I know one of the things that he had mentioned when I had spoken with him, I would like to tell folks again as well, they've gone around to cities and towns as it's moved through the legislative process, but now they're really making the appeal to communities. They go to the schools, they go in, but they're asking people to take the pictures and send it along as well. So this is really a grassroots approach as well.
Yeah, and it's not just fix roofs and stop leaks and so on. Those, of course, are the most critical, the warm, safe, dry standard, but education has changed. So if we have buildings that are anchored in the turn of the last century as opposed to the turn of this century, we're putting kids to learn 21st century stuff in 20th century or worse buildings. So we need to also take better advantage of natural light, take better advantage of collaboration space, take better advantage of science labs so people have more hands-on experience aligned to our higher wage, high growth job opportunities, and also early learning. Early learning classrooms look different than traditional classrooms, and we know that an investment in early learning has a huge return down the road. It's a 7-to-1 return. You invest $1 in early learning, you get a $7 return. So we need to have facilities to support that career work, the economic development work, the early learning work, the science and technology, engineering and math work. So it's not just about warm, safe, dry. Every district can benefit from warm, safe, dry critical investments, but it's also about advancing our programs for our kids.
Let's talk a little bit as well. There have been some folks that have asked, well, if these schools have been around for, say, 70 years, here we are in 2018, if we're looking at 70 more, do we actually envision sort of the bricks and mortar, if you will, how that will look moving forward? I mean, is there room for online component? I mean, how does sort of that education of the future look like it's shaping up to be?
Yeah. So a couple of things in your question. The first is the only way we're going to be prepared, not get ourselves into the same mess that we're currently in, is also investing in ongoing maintenance. So a key feature that came out of the General Assembly, signed by the governor, is the requirement for communities to continue to invest in their facilities so we don't get back to the same state of disrepair that we're in currently. That being said, we have to take advantage of the changing in trends. So there will be a shift to more virtual learning opportunities. So we need to make sure that our investments are consistent with digital education footprint, not just a face-to-face footprint, and also mixed use of facilities. It's increasingly going to be not just traditional schools that use our buildings, but wraparound services, whether they be health-related services or internship-type employer partnership services. So one of the things that we changed is that we make it permissible to get funding on facilities that are used not just by our traditional education folks, but our community wraparound people as well. And that's how our model is going to continue to change. Education increasingly is going to have more partnerships. Some of those partnerships will be through virtual channels, and some of them will be through community-based services.
Well, school's almost out for summer. As you mentioned, a number of rising seniors across the state taking part in an internship program. We know the work of the education community doesn't stop, but is there going to be some room for some fun for the Commissioner of Education this summer?
There's always room for fun, but I have fun doing my work, so it's nice to have those two things put together.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, as always, to come in, again, letting folks know what's happening at RIDE. Again, today, the $6.9 million that was put out to an RFP had community respondents for adult education learning. Will provide who those are when you check back into GoLocal. So Dr. Wagner, I appreciate you taking the time to come in.
Thank you.
I'll let you go around the corner, and we'll wrap
Take
up
care.
here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. It's been a busy day. Rachel Noons kicked off the 3 o'clock hour with a full lineup in the Lifestyle Hour, and then 4 o'clock talking with Jennifer Lawless, Joseph Molina Flynn, Dr. Ken Wagner. We appreciate your tuning in. We look forward to seeing you here tomorrow at 3 o'clock. It's The Taste with Alfresco Dining with Rick Simone, and more news and politics. I'll be back at 4. In the meantime, continue to read GoLocalProv.com, catch us on Facebook and Twitter, and of course, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel.